Well, updating our top Fox News story on this Sunday, the FBI releasing those documents from the 9/11 investigation and the new disturbing revelations about Saudi Arabia that our government fought to keep secret all of these years. 11 family members say that the new revelations expose Saudi Arabia's involvement in 9/11, despite the kingdom's denials. The declassified report clearly shows repeated contacts with Saudi nationals here in the U.S., including a Saudi diplomat and another employee. The report found that the diplomat gave a couple of the hijackers help when they arrived here in our country. More than a year before the attack, he supposedly told one of the associates that the hijackers were, quote, two very significant people. Now that these new Saudi revelations have been revealed, how should President Biden move forward? With us now is Texas Republican Congressman Tony Gonzales. He served in the Navy as a cryptologist, which means that he knows how to ferret things out, and he served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Congressman, welcome. Thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Of course. This is it's a pretty disturbing picture. I mean, it does paint a picture of Saudi officials here in this country helping, meeting with, perhaps assisting in other ways some of these hijackers before 9/11. What does this potentially tell you?
Yeah, there's no doubt that Saudi nationals, helped plot and help execute this terrible act on September 11th. What level that dipped into the Saudi government, I still think is murky. But one thing that isn't murky is the Taliban housed Al Qaeda. They harbored them, and now that the Taliban are in control of the Afghan government, there are resources, there are funds that have been frozen. I believe those resources, those funds need to be captured, and they need to be given over to the victims of 9/11. The victims and their families of 9/11 cannot be forgotten, and we can't let these resources go into the hands of the Taliban.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right on that in terms of anything that the Taliban has that we can get our hands on. But, what about Saudi Arabia? Let me read you one thing from the report. It talks about one employee, Omar al-Bayani. He's a Saudi government employee who was quoted as talking about jihad. And the new information says that he met one of the hijackers in a restaurant. And the original 9/11 commission said, oh, it was just happenstance. It was a coincidence. But this new report says, well, no, there was a witness who said he was waiting for this person. I mean, why did the 9/11 commission, that's supposed to know all, why did it get some things wrong?
Yeah, we have to dive into this much deeper. The world is a dangerous place, and often your friends are not really your friends. And in this case, it wasn't by chance. This 9/11 didn't happen by chance. It was well plotted out. It was well financed, and it was well executed. We have to get to the root of it, and we have to make sure it never happens again. If we just brush over it, what's going to happen? We're going to see another 9/11 happen. And the last thing we want is any foreign government interfering in our domestic affairs. Saudi Arabia has to be held accountable for this.
Are you concerned, though, that some in Washington will say, well, we don't want to muck up the Saudi relations with the U.S. We'll just keep this under the rug, and there's still stuff that's redacted that we don't know, that the government is keeping secret. Should that be out so we know the full, complete picture of potential Saudi involvement?
I believe it's time to put Americans first in all aspects, from foreign policy to domestic policy and everything between. Put Americans first. We had nearly 3,000 Americans die that day. We had countless service members die over the last 20 years. America demands to be put first on the national stage, on the world stage, and that's what the Joe Biden administration doesn't get. They need to put Americans first.
Well, what would you say the administration should do? Should they release the redacted information? Let me read you something about one thing. A diplomat, this guy's a diplomat, Fahad al-Thamami. He's a Saudi Arabia diplomat. He was tasked, says the report, to helping some of the hijackers. I'm reading this directly. He says he was in Los Angeles. He told the associates the hijackers were, quote, two very significant people. That more than 1 year before the attack. So look, at least this Saudi Arabian diplomat, and certainly perhaps others, knew about these guys. And Saudi Arabia sits there and says, well, we had nothing to do with it. Let me read you a statement from the lawyer for the families. This is pretty blunt, Congressman. Quote, this document, together with the public evidence gathered today, provides a blueprint for how al-Qaeda operated inside the U.S. with the active, knowing support of the Saudi government. Saudi officials engaged in phone calls among themselves with al-Qaeda operatives and had accidental meetings, quote unquote, with the 9/11 hijackers, are providing them with substantial assistance to get settled, find flight schools, and become acclimated to life in the U.S. Congressman, let me read that one part again. Providing them with substantial assistance to get settled, find flight schools, and become acclimated in the U.S. Why would the Saudi government want to help these guys find flight schools?
America demands the truth. You know, oftentimes when you redact a classified document, it's to protect sources and methods. Well, guess what? It's been 20 years, right? America demands the truth on what happened that day. For one, for the victims, and to make sure that the victims, are taken care of, but also to ensure that that day never happens again, whether it was by a rogue Osama bin Laden or whether it was a coordinated effort with a state government. I think America deserves to know the truth. And these redacted statements, I think, just opens up more questions that need to be answered.
Saudi Arabia, to some, has been a very close and treasured ally, especially facing the threat from Iran, which grows every day. Here's what the embassy in Washington, D.C. says about previous claims that the kingdom was involved with 9/11. They say, quote, "No evidence has ever emerged to indicate that the Saudi government or its officials had previous knowledge of the terrorist attack or any way involved in its planning or execution. Any allegation that Saudi Arabia is complicit in the September 11 attacks is categorically false." Let's parse that. There is no evidence that they had knowledge or in any way involved in its planning or execution. That doesn't mean they didn't help the hijackers.
Yeah, you know, I think back to kind of what happened with the journalist Khashoggi and the way they handled that, and any government that uses that level of brutality against its own people, what do you think their strategy is? So I would just say it's time to put Americans first. It's time to America to realize that the nation, the world is filled with wolves, and we have to protect our citizens first and foremost, regardless of longstanding allies or not. We have to get to the truth and let the truth determine the outcome.
Republican Congressman Tony Gonzales of Texas, thank you. He calls for the government to release what they are still hiding about potential Saudi Arabian involvement. Congressman, always good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.